A knight's life depended entirely on his horse. Medieval horse care was a complex art, blending practical skill with strange science. And in this journey, we'll uncover exactly how these animals were kept in peak condition. You will learn the surprising secrets of their diets, their medical treatments, and the daily rituals that could mean the difference between victory and defeat on the battlefield. How did a farrier forge the perfect horseshoe for a 1,000-pound destrier? What mysterious herbs did a horse leech use to treat a deadly wound? The answers reveal a world where the fate of kingdoms rested on the health of a hoof. What do you think was the most vital part of caring for a medieval warhorse? A knight's destrier was a living engine of war, but this was only one thread in a much richer tapestry. Medieval society was built upon the back of the horse, an animal whose value stretched far beyond the battlefield. Your social standing was often measured by the horse you rode. A noble lady required a smooth, gaited palfrey for comfortable travel, a symbol of her refinement. A wealthy merchant might show off his success with a finely bred jennet. And for the common farmer, a sturdy, unassuming roundsey was not a luxury but a necessity, the power that pulled his plow and carried his goods to market. This vast spectrum of equine roles meant that care could never be a one-size-fits-all practice. The diet that sustained a massive warhorse bred for explosive power would be utterly wasted on a gentle palfrey ambling along a country path. The medical treatment for a plow horse's strained shoulder was different from that for a knight's charger suffering a battlefield injury. Each horse, from the most expensive destrier to the humblest cart horse, had a specific purpose, and its life, and the survival of those who depended on it hinged on care tailored to that singular role. So how did a stable master manage such a diverse herd, ensuring each animal received exactly what it needed to thrive? The sheer power of a charging destrier demanded a fuel far beyond common pasture. This was not a simple matter of filling a trough with hay. The diet of a warhorse was a precise science, a calculated regimen designed to forge a living, breathing weapon. At the heart of this regimen were grains, specifically oats and barley. These were the powerhouses, the carbohydrates that would be converted into explosive energy and dense muscle. A knight's stable master measured these grains with meticulous care, adjusting portions based on the horse's training schedule and the looming prospect of a campaign. But grain alone was not enough. To build true stamina and repair the micro tears in muscle from intense exercise, these animals received legumes. Peas and beans, rich in protein, were a staple addition to their daily feed, acting as the building blocks for a body that could withstand the brutal demands of the battlefield. And for a horse recovering from injury or illness, the care became even more specialized. A convalescing animal might be given moistened bread or even raw eggs, believed to be potent, easily digestible sources of strength to nurse them back to health. Every mouthful was a strategic decision. Too little food, and the horse would be weak. Too much, or the wrong kind, and it could become sluggish or develop colic, a potentially fatal condition. The stable master's knowledge was the invisible barrier between a knight mounted on a vibrant, powerful companion and a knight stranded on the ground. So how did they translate this complex diet into a daily ritual that kept thousands of horses across Europe in fighting shape? Feeding a warhorse required more than just a carefully measured grain ration. The very land the horse walked upon was a vital part of its diet, managed with an almost sacred understanding of nature's cycles. Pasturing was a sophisticated art, a long-term strategy to ensure a constant supply of fresh, nutrient-rich forage. The most critical practice was the rotation of fields. A wise stable master would never allow his horses to graze a single pasture down to the dirt. Instead, he divided his available land into several enclosed fields, moving the herd from one to another in a deliberate cycle. This allowed grazed grasses time to recover and regrow, preventing the soil from becoming barren and ensuring the plants remained robust and full of vitality. Overgrazing was a known danger, a quick path to weak, malnourished animals and a failed estate. But this system of rotation was about more than just grass quantity. It was about quality. Certain fields were deliberately sown with specific grasses and herbs known for their benefits. Common meadow grasses provided bulk, but other plants were cultivated for their hidden powers. Legumes like clover were valued for adding protein to the diet straight from the ground. Herbs such as chamomile were sometimes encouraged for their calming properties, while others were believed to ward off intestinal parasites or aid digestion. This transformed a simple field into a living, breathing apothecary and pantry, all rolled into one. Yet this entire delicate system faced its greatest tests with the changing seasons. During the lush abundance of spring and summer, the rotation system worked beautifully. But what happened when winter's frost silenced the fields, or a summer drought baked the earth hard? The provision of fresh forage stopped entirely. This is where the stable master's foresight was truly tested. The hay harvested during the peak growing season became the lifeline. It was cut, dried with immense care to preserve its nutrients and prevent mold, and stored in vast haylofts. The quality of this stored hay, its color and smell, directly influenced the health and strength of the horses through the long, lean months. A poor harvest or improper storage could mean the difference between a healthy herd and a starving one. Managing a pasture was not a passive act of letting horses eat. It was an active, year-long battle against time and the elements, a silent foundation upon which the power of every night and the success of every farm truly rested. A horse could eat the finest grains and graze the richest pastures, yet still fail without one crucial element. Water was life itself, but its quality was a constant and often invisible battle. Medieval grooms understood that not all water was created equal. A clear, fast-moving stream was the gold standard, its constant flow naturally scouring the water clean of filth and stagnation. They deeply distrusted still ponds and swampy marshes, knowing these were breeding grounds for illness, places where a horse might drink its way to a slow, mysterious decline. But a knight could not always camp by a perfect stream. For the daily needs of a castle or manor, the solution was the water trough. This was not a simple wooden bucket left to stagnate. The best troughs were carved from solid stone or carefully lined with clay. Their smooth, non-porous surfaces were easier to scrub clean, preventing the buildup of slime and algae that could taint the water and sicken the herd. The ritual of cleaning these troughs was as vital as the feeding schedule, a daily chore that separated good husbandry from neglect. Yet beyond this practical wisdom lay a more mystical layer of belief. Scattered across the landscape were natural springs, their waters bubbling up from deep within the earth. These were not just sources of fresh water. Many were revered as sacred, possessing special healing powers. A horse suffering from a skin ailment, a lingering lameness, or a general malaise might be deliberately led to one of these springs. Its waters were believed to wash away the affliction, a spiritual cleansing as much as a physical one. This blend of sharp observation and deep-seated faith defined their entire approach. They knew clean, flowing water prevented sickness, and they hoped that certain magical waters could actively cure it. But what happened when a horse did fall ill, despite all these careful precautions? The health of a horse often came down to the skill of a single, soot-covered craftsman, the farrier. His forge was the frontline defense against a threat that could fell even the strongest destrier, lameness. This was not a simple matter of nailing a piece of metal to a hoof. It was a precise craft that blended the strength of a blacksmith with the delicate understanding of a surgeon. The process began at the anvil, where a bar of iron was heated to a brilliant orange and hammered into a curved shoe. This was not a one-size-fits-all object. Each shoe was custom forged for a specific hoof, its shape and weight dictated by the horse's role. A knight's warhorse required a heavy, durable shoe, often with sharpened edges, called calkins, projecting from the heel. These calkins gave the horse critical traction on muddy, blood-soaked battlefields, allowing it to pivot and charge without slipping. For a merchant's packhorse constantly traveling hard Roman roads, the shoe was lighter and smoother, designed for mile after mile of steady, efficient travel. And for a noblewoman's palfrey, the shoe might be even more refined, prioritizing a smooth gait over rugged durability. But the metalwork was only half the story. Before the hot iron ever touched the hoof, the farrier performed the most delicate part of the operation, trimming the hoof itself. A horse's hoof is made of keratin, the same material as your fingernail, and it constantly grows. If left untrimmed, it can crack, split, or force the animal to walk on unnatural angles, leading to crippling pain and joint damage. The farrier used a sharp, curved knife called a hoof knife to carefully pare away the excess growth, reshaping the hoof to its ideal, balanced form. Only then would he take the newly forged, still glowing shoe from his forge. He would press it briefly against the prepared hoof, a technique called hot fitting. The sizzle and smell of burning horn was not a sign of cruelty, but of precision. It allowed the farrier to see exactly where the shoe made contact, ensuring a perfectly flush, pressure-free fit before he drove the nails home. A single misplaced nail, a shoe that was a fraction too small, or an unbalanced trim could leave a horse lame for life. The clang of the farrier's hammer was the sound of mobility, a rhythm that kept kingdoms moving and knights in the saddle. After the precise work of the farrier came the daily ritual of the groom, a practice where brute strength met tender care. The tools of this trade were simple but specific, each with a vital purpose. The process began with a curry comb, a sturdy tool often made of wood or carved horn with rows of teeth. This was not a gentle brush. The groom would work this comb in firm, circular motions across the horse's powerful muscles, loosening dried sweat, caked mud, and dead skin. This deep massage was the foundation of the entire routine, stimulating blood flow just beneath the skin and bringing a healthy glow to the coat. Following the curry comb came a series of brushes, each progressively softer. A stiff dandy brush, sometimes made of bristle or even dried teasel plant, would sweep away the debris the curry comb had dislodged. Then, a softer body brush made with fine animal hair would smooth the coat, distributing the horse's natural oils to give it a waterproof sheen and a healthy luster. Finally, a soft cloth or a special mane comb would be used on the more sensitive areas like the face, the legs, and the long, flowing tail. But this was far more than a bath for appearances. As the groom's hands moved over every inch of the animal, they were performing a critical health inspection. Their skilled fingers would feel for any new swellings, cuts, or hot spots that could signal a brewing infection or a strained tendon. They checked the skin for the telltale signs of ticks or other parasites that could weaken the horse if left unchecked. A small burr tangled in the fetlock hair could, over days of rubbing, create an open wound ripe for disease. This daily, hands-on examination was the earliest possible warning system, a chance to catch a minor issue long before it became a life-threatening crisis. Beyond the obvious health benefits, this ritual forged an unbreakable bond. A warhorse was a creature of immense power and high-strung nerves. The repetitive, calming motion of the brush, the familiar scent and voice of its handler, taught the animal to trust. A horse that flinched from human touch was a danger on the battlefield, while one that stood calmly for its groom was a reliable partner. This was not a chore to be rushed. It was a language of touch and attention, a silent promise between the handler and the horse that its well-being was the highest priority. The shine on a destrier's coat was not just for vanity, it was the visible proof of a deep daily commitment. So what happened when this careful, preventative care was not enough, and an injury did occur? The line between a healthy horse and a sick one was often drawn by the very walls that sheltered it. A stable was far more than a simple shed. It was a carefully engineered environment designed to sustain the immense physical investment a horse represented. The quality of its construction spoke volumes about the owner's status and understanding of equine needs. A peasant's stable was a humble affair, often a single bay within the same structure that housed the family's cow and chickens. Built from local timber and packed earth, its primary goal was basic shelter from wind and rain. Yet even here, a wise farmer knew to slope the floor for drainage and provide a window for fresh air, understanding that a damp, stagnant atmosphere bred disease. Contrast this with the stables of a wealthy nobleman, structures so grand they were often called mews. These could be impressive stone buildings with arched doorways and tiled roofs, designed not just for function but for show. Inside, the air was kept fresh not by chance, but by design. High, narrow windows were strategically placed to create a cross breeze, pulling out the moist, ammonia-laden air from the horse's breath and waste without creating a chilling draft down below. This constant, gentle ventilation was a silent guardian against respiratory illnesses that could ravage a herd confined to a closed space. The floor itself was a critical component of health. While a dirt floor was common, the most advanced stables featured floors of stone or packed gravel, carefully graded to channel liquid waste away from the standing areas. Gutters ran along the back of each stall, carrying urine and water outside to a drainage ditch, a simple but effective medieval sanitation system. Managing the solid waste was a daily ritual. Soiled straw bedding was mucked out and replaced with fresh, dry material, not merely for comfort, but to deny a breeding ground for parasites and bacteria. The layout of a larger stable was a lesson in social order and practical psychology. Horses were not all housed together. A knight's prized destrier, a high-strung and valuable animal, would be given a spacious stall at the end of the row, away from the comings and goings that might upset its nerves. The gentle palfreys and pack horses would be placed in a separate section, their calmer temperaments allowing them to be stabled closer to the busy entrance. This separation by type and temperament prevented fights, reduced stress, and ensured that each animal received the quiet or the company it needed to thrive. A well-designed stable was a fortress against the invisible enemies of damp, disease, and disorder. It was a controlled climate where a horse could digest its expensive grain, heal from its exertions, and rest its powerful body, all within walls that were as much a part of its care as any brush or medicine. Even the finest stable and the most nutritious diet meant nothing if the leather connecting horse and rider failed at a critical moment. A knight's tack was his direct line of control, a complex assembly of saddles, bridles, and straps that had to withstand immense force and constant wear. The maintenance of this equipment was a nightly ritual as vital as feeding the horse itself. The primary enemy was dryness. Leather left unoiled would become brittle and stiff, cracking under pressure and potentially snapping during a charge or a sudden jump. To prevent this, a groom would work with a rag and a pot of specially prepared dressing. Animal fats like lard or tallow were common, rubbed thoroughly into the leather to restore its natural oils and keep it supple and water-resistant. In wealthier households, neatsfoot oil, rendered from the shin bones and feet of cattle, was prized for its deep, penetrating ability to condition leather without leaving a greasy residue. This was not a quick wipe. It was a deliberate, mindful process, ensuring every stitch and seam was treated. As the groom's hands worked the oil into a saddle's seat or a bridle's reins, they were also performing a meticulous inspection. Their fingers would trace every inch of stitching, feeling for any threads that had frayed or loosened. A single broken stitch on a girth, the wide strap that holds the saddle on, could unravel under stress, leading to a catastrophic saddle slip in the middle of a battle. Repairing this stitching with a sturdy awl and waxed linen thread was an immediate priority, a small act of prevention that could save a life. The metal components demanded equal attention. The bit, the piece of forged iron that sits in the horse's mouth, was carefully cleaned of saliva and grass to prevent rust, which could irritate the horse's sensitive lips and tongue, making it resistant to commands. The buckles and rivets were checked for sharp edges and signs of weakness. After cleaning and conditioning, the tack was not simply tossed in a corner. It was stored with purpose, hung on shaped wooden brackets that supported the saddle's tree and kept the leather from developing permanent, damaging creases. Storage happened in a dry, airy place, safe from the dampness that encouraged mold and rot. The gleam of well-kept leather in the morning light was a sign of more than pride. It was a testament to a groom's understanding that the rider's safety was literally hanging by a thread. When a horse fell ill, its treatment lay in the hands of a figure known as the horse leech. His methods were a strange but logical blend of ancient science and hands-on wisdom, rooted in a theory that governed all of medieval medicine. This was the doctrine of the four humors. The body, they believed, was ruled by four vital fluids: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. Health was a perfect balance of these humors, while sickness was an imbalance that had to be corrected. A horse that was lethargic and cool might be deemed too phlegmatic, requiring warming treatments. One that was hot-tempered and agitated was seen as having an excess of blood, and might be treated with cooling herbs or even bloodletting to restore its inner equilibrium. This framework guided every diagnosis, turning symptoms into clues for a deeper, invisible battle within the animal's body. The horse leech's toolkit was his herb garden. He knew which plants could draw out infection, which could soothe a fever, and which could knit a wound back together. Comfrey, for instance, was so renowned for its ability to heal broken bones and torn ligaments that it earned the name knit bone. Its roots and leaves were mashed into a poultice and packed around a fracture, believed to accelerate the mending of bone itself. For an open wound, cleanliness was instinctively understood, even if germs were not. Lavender was a common choice, not for its pleasant scent, but because its strong antiseptic properties helped prevent the wound from festering and turning deadly. Other herbs had their own specific roles. Wormwood was fed to horses to drive out intestinal parasites, while meadowsweet was used as a pain reliever for animals suffering from joint inflammation. The application of these remedies was a physical art. A poultice of heated herbs and clay would be applied to draw out deep-seated inflammation. A wound would be washed with a strained infusion of antiseptic leaves. Potent herbs might be mixed into the horse's feed or its water, a hidden medicine to calm its nerves or settle its stomach. This was not mere superstition. It was a system built on generations of observation, where the visible results, a healed leg, a settled stomach, a closed wound, reinforced the belief in the humors and the power of the plants. But what happened when these herbal cures and ancient theories were not enough to save a horse from a devastating plague or a mysterious, sweeping illness? The horse leech's quest for balance could take a drastic and dangerous turn. When a horse burned with fever or swelled with inflammation, the most direct cure was to simply drain the excess away. Bloodletting was a common, if terrifying, procedure. The theory was straightforward. A feverish, agitated animal was thought to be suffering from a dangerous surplus of blood, the hot and wet humor. Restoring balance required releasing that surplus. The leech would use a narrow, sharp blade called a fleam. With a quick, practiced motion, he would make a small incision into one of the large veins in the horse's neck, allowing a measured amount of blood to flow into a waiting bowl. The quantity was not random. It was carefully judged by the horse's size and the severity of its symptoms. A deliberate weakening meant to cool the body's raging internal fire. For a localized swelling, like a strained tendon, a treatment called firing might be used. A hot iron was applied in a pattern of dots directly onto the skin over the injury. The belief was that this counter-irritation would draw the bad humors away from the deeper tissue and towards the surface, where they could finally escape the body. These were brutal methods by our standards, yet they were performed with the sincere conviction that they were saving the animal from a far worse internal fate. The same logic of expulsion governed internal ailments. If a horse was lethargic, off its feed, or suffering from a mysterious bloat, the diagnosis was often an imbalance of phlegm or black bile, the cold and sluggish humors. To cleanse the system, the horse leech turned to purgatives and emetics. Powerful herbal concoctions were forced down the horse's throat. Hellebore, aloe, and strong salts acted as violent laxatives, intended to purge the digestive tract of the corrupting matter believed to be causing the illness. Other mixtures, designed to induce vomiting, would be given to empty the stomach. The goal was a total reset, a physical cleansing that mirrored the desired humoral rebalancing. We now understand the immense risks of these treatments. Bleeding a horse already weakened by fever could push it into fatal shock. Harsh purgatives could cause devastating dehydration and colic, effectively poisoning the animal they were meant to cure. Yet within their flawed framework, there was a thread of twisted logic. They saw a sick body as a system clogged with bad substances, and their solution was the most direct one imaginable: to open a drain and let the sickness pour out. The line between a life-saving intervention and a death sentence was terrifyingly thin, drawn by the limited knowledge of the age. Beyond the bleeding and the purges lay a deeper secret: the horse leech's private book of remedies. These handwritten manuscripts were his most guarded possessions, filled with recipes that blended the practical with the profoundly mystical. A single page might contain a straightforward poultice for a hoof abscess right next to a cure that called for ingredients like powdered stag's horn or the ashes of a swallow's nest. These exotic components were not chosen at random. Stag's horn, for instance, was a substance of immense strength and vitality. and by grinding it into a powder to be mixed into a horse's feed, the leech believed he was transferring that very strength into the animal, helping it to heal or to run faster. This was a world where the symbolic power of an ingredient was just as important as its chemical properties. The recipes themselves were often a bizarre inventory. You might find instructions for a wound wash that combined common garden lavender with rainwater collected during a specific phase of the moon. Another might require the fat of a bear, thought to lend fortitude, or the rendered grease from a church candle, believed to carry a divine blessing. Yet the physical mixture was only half of the cure. The act of preparing and administering these remedies was often wrapped in ritual. A leech might chant a specific prayer or incantation over the mixture as he stirred it, charging the medicine with spiritual intention. He might draw a symbol in the air over the horse's injured leg before applying a salve, or perform the treatment only at sunrise, harnessing the power of a new day. These actions were not empty theater. In a world where the causes of disease were invisible and poorly understood, the ritual provided a framework of control. It gave the leech and the anxious owner the confidence that every possible avenue, both physical and supernatural, had been explored. The grimoire was more than a medical text. It was a map of a world view where health was a fragile balance between the body and the unseen forces that constantly acted upon it. The quest for the perfect warhorse began not in the stable, but at the breeding farm. Behind every powerful destrier stood generations of calculated pairings, a silent art of selection that shaped equine evolution to suit the brutal needs of the medieval world. This was a long-term strategy, a gamble played out over years and even decades. The primary goal was to amplify specific, vital traits. Size was paramount. A knight needed a horse tall enough to give him a commanding view of the battlefield, and massive enough to carry his own weight, plus hundreds of pounds of armor without faltering. But raw size was useless without the strength to wield it, the deep-chested power for an explosive charge, and the sturdy bone structure to withstand the impact. Perhaps the most delicate trait to breed for was temperament. The ideal warhorse was a paradox. It needed the courage to thunder into a wall of spears without shying away, yet it also required the intelligence and steady nerves to respond to subtle knee pressures from its rider in the chaos of melee. A horse that panicked was a death trap, while one that was too docile lacked the necessary fire. Achieving this balance was the highest art of the breeder. So how did they manage this complex biological equation? The control of bloodlines was everything. Prized stallions, celebrated for their victories in battle or tournament, were the most valuable assets. Their stud fees could be astronomical, reserved for the mares of only the wealthiest nobles or royalty. These stallions were often treated like kings, housed in their own luxurious stalls, and exercised with meticulous care to keep them in peak physical condition for their primary role. The selection of mares was equally deliberate. A breeder would seek out a mare known for producing strong, healthy foals, one who herself possessed the deep girth and calm disposition he wanted to pass on. They understood that the mother contributed not just the foal's initial nourishment, but half of its very essence. The management of the actual breeding was a dangerous affair. The raw power and volatile nature of the stallion meant this was no peaceful pasture meeting. It often occurred in a specially designed breeding shed, with the mare securely held in place and the stallion carefully handled by experienced grooms using long lead ropes, a dance of controlled power and potential violence. The most successful breeders did not rely on memory alone. In the scriptoria of wealthy monasteries and the record rooms of great nobles, detailed pedigrees were meticulously kept. These were the medieval equivalent of a genetic database. Scribes would carefully note which stallion was bred to which mare in a given year, and then record the outcome, the sex, color, and eventual qualities of the resulting foal. Over time, these records revealed patterns. They showed that a certain stallion consistently sired offspring with exceptional stamina, or that a particular mare line produced foals with unusually strong, sound hooves. This allowed for strategic pairings, matching a stallion known for his aggressive spirit with a mare from a line celebrated for its docility, hoping to blend the best of both worlds in a single animal. The economic and strategic stakes could not be higher. A single superior warhorse was worth a small fortune, sometimes as much as a skilled craftsman would earn in 10 years. For a king, establishing a renowned stud farm was a direct investment in military power. It meant a reliable source of magnificent chargers for his most trusted knights, reducing dependence on expensive and uncertain imports. The horses bred in these controlled environments became living legends, their bloodlines so coveted that they were guarded as closely as state secrets. The thundering charge that decided a battle often began with a decision made in a quiet stud farm years before. A foal's first few months were a delicate and dangerous time. Its survival was a testament not just to luck, but to a carefully managed system of nurture. The first great milestone was weaning, a process handled with surprising psychological insight. A foal would typically nurse from its mother for about 6 months, but removing it too abruptly could cause both animals immense stress. The solution was often a gradual separation. The mare and foal would be placed in adjacent stalls or adjoining paddocks, allowing them to see and smell each other but preventing nursing. This gentle severance helped the foal learn independence while minimizing the distress that could lead to a loss of condition for either of them. The foal's diet during this transition was critical. It could not simply switch to the rich oats and hay of an adult warhorse. Its developing digestive system required something gentler. A common weaning food was a warm bran mash, easily digestible and providing essential nutrients. Some grooms would also offer finely chopped, tender grasses or even soaked linseed, which was believed to promote a healthy, glossy coat and strong bone development. Every meal was calculated to build the foundation of the animal it would become. Once weaned, the young horse entered a period of targeted growth. Its diet was adjusted to fuel development without causing the rapid, unhealthy weight gain that could strain its immature legs. This was not the time for the high-energy grains that powered a destrier in training. Instead, the focus was on quality hay and pasture, supplemented with smaller, measured amounts of oats and protein-rich legumes like peas. The goal was steady, strong growth, not speed. Grooms watched the young animal's conformation with a critical eye, looking for straight legs, a strong back, and well-angled joints, the physical signs of a future soundness that was worth more than gold. But even with perfect nutrition, young horses faced constant health threats. Parasites were a silent scourge, and foals were particularly vulnerable. Dosing with wormwood or other bitter herbs mixed into their feed was a common preventative measure. Respiratory illnesses could spread like wildfire through a group of young stock, making the clean, airy design of their stables a matter of life and death. A foal that survived its first year with a strong frame and a clean bill of health was already a significant asset, its value increasing with every passing season. The most critical and dangerous phase of its early life was yet to come, the process known as breaking. This term carried a weight far beyond simple training. It was about teaching a powerful, flighty animal to willingly accept human control. A wise horse master knew that this process could not be rushed. It was a careful dance of building trust. It began with the most basic familiarization, a patient groom spending hours simply standing in the foal's pen, allowing it to grow accustomed to a human presence. The first touch was a victory, the first time a halter was slipped over its head without panic, a major triumph. The next steps introduced the feel of gear, the weight of a blanket on its back, the strange sensation of a bit in its mouth. All of this was done with immense patience, rewarding calm behavior with a kind word or a handful of sweet hay. The final step was accepting a rider. This was not a wild cowboy scene of mounting a bucking horse. The first rider was often the lightest and most skilled groom, who would gently lean over the horse's back while it was held steady, then slowly, carefully, settle his weight in the saddle. The goal was to make every new experience as non-threatening as possible, to build a partner, not to break a spirit. A horse that was terrified into submission would always be unpredictable, a danger to itself and its rider. But a horse that learned to trust its human would carry that confidence onto the battlefield or the road for the rest of its life. This entire year's long investment in a single foal, from its first brand mash to its first quiet ride, was a gamble on the future. For a nobleman, a well-raised foal from a prized bloodline was a living treasure, a future champion that could secure his military power for the next decade. The care poured into these young animals was the ultimate expression of a society that knew its survival was built on the back of the horse. A warhorse's strength was useless without the discipline to wield it. The final stage of its education was a brutal, meticulously planned fitness regime, transforming a powerful animal into an unshakable partner for the chaos of war. This training was not about breaking its spirit, but about forging its instincts, building a body and mind that could function when every fiber screamed to flee. The foundation of this conditioning was stamina, and it was built through relentless, progressive overload. A young horse in training would be taken on long, steady trots across varied terrain, its duration and distance carefully increased over weeks and months. But this was no leisurely trail ride. To simulate the crushing weight of a knight in full plate armor, the horse itself was conditioned while wearing heavy gear. It would train in a padded cloth called a caparison, and sometimes even in specially weighted saddle pads, building the muscles in its back and hindquarters to carry a true burden without exhaustion. This slow, deliberate work developed the deep, slow twitch muscles and cardiovascular endurance needed to sustain a charge and then fight for hours in the stifling heat of battle. Agility was the next critical pillar. A knight's life depended on his horse's ability to pivot, sidestep, and accelerate with lightning speed. This was honed in the tilt yard through a series of complex, rehearsed maneuvers. The horse was taught the volt, a tight, controlled circle that could be used to swiftly face a new opponent. It practiced the passade, a forward and backward movement in a straight line, crucial for making space in a crowded melee. Perhaps the most demanding exercise was the levade, where the horse was trained to rear up on its hind legs, a move that allowed a knight to strike downward with immense force or to present a smaller target to an oncoming foe. Each of these movements was taught through patient repetition, using the subtle pressure of the rider's knees and the shifting of his weight, until the horse responded without a moment's hesitation. This was not just physical training, it was a language being coded into the animal's very nerves and muscles. Yet physical prowess meant nothing if the horse panicked at the first blast of a war horn. The final and most psychological part of its training was acclimatization to the sensory nightmare of the battlefield. Grooms and trainers would deliberately create controlled chaos within the practice field. They would clang swords against shields near the horse's head, gradually increasing the volume until the animal learned to ignore the terrifying noise. Men would rush past waving banners and flags, simulating the confusion of a massed infantry charge. The horse was walked over cloths and through smoke, familiarized with the strange, unpredictable sights and smells it would inevitably encounter. Most importantly, it had to grow completely comfortable with the sight and sound of its own rider in full armor. A man transformed into a clanking, faceless steel statue was deeply unsettling to a prey animal. The knight would spend hours around the horse while armored, letting it nuzzle the cold metal, feeding it treats, until the suit ceased to be a monster and became simply a part of its trusted human. A warhorse that flinched from a raised lance or startled at the crash of a falling comrade was a liability, but one that stood firm, its ears flicking calmly amidst the din, was a true weapon. This ultimate trust, built through thousands of repetitions, was what separated a well-trained charger from a mere riding horse. It was the invisible armor that protected them both. Moving 1,000 pounds of muscle and nerve across continents was one of the medieval world's greatest logistical nightmares. Whether answering the Pope's call to crusade or transporting valuable breeding stock to a new kingdom, the journey itself was a battle against geography, disease, and sheer bad luck. The most perilous method was also the most necessary for reaching distant shores: the horse ship. These were not specialized vessels but adapted cargo ships, their holds transformed into floating stables. A temporary wooden framework divided the dark, rolling space into narrow stalls, each just large enough for a single horse to stand. The animals were slung in broad canvas belly bands, a harness that took their weight and helped them keep their footing on the unpredictable sea. Without this support, a horse could easily break a leg during a sudden lurch of the ship, a death sentence in the middle of the ocean. The air below decks was thick with the smell of salt, sweat, and fear, a stifling atmosphere that bred respiratory illness. Keeping the horses calm was a constant struggle. Their handlers would often hang a familiar object, like a favorite brush or a sack of the horse's own stable hay, within smelling distance, a small anchor of home in a world of terrifying, unfamiliar motion. Every day at sea, the grooms faced the back-breaking work of mucking out the stalls, hauling soiled straw and waste up to the deck to be tossed overboard, a vital chore to prevent disease from festering in the dark. Fresh water was a precious, strictly rationed commodity, and the constant stress of the voyage meant many horses arrived at their destination thin, dehydrated, and psychologically scarred. Travel by land presented a different set of dangers. A train of horses was a slow-moving treasury, a magnet for bandits and rival lords. Protecting this mobile wealth required a small army of its own. Outriders, armed and armored, would scout the path ahead and guard the flanks, their eyes constantly scanning the tree lines for ambush. At night, the entire convoy would circle the wagons, creating a makeshift fortress with the horses picketed securely in the center. But the enemy was not always human. A simple stone caught in a hoof could lame a priceless destrier if not found and removed quickly. A misstep on a rocky mountain pass could mean a broken leg and a heartbreaking decision. The pace was deliberately slow, with frequent stops to allow the horses to graze and drink, because pushing them too hard was a sure way to arrive with a herd of exhausted, sickly animals. The daily routine of grooming became even more critical on the road. A patch of dried sweat under a saddle could turn into a painful sore in hours, rendering a horse useless. The grooms would check every hoof, every leg, every inch of hide with a heightened urgency, knowing that a minor issue ignored today could become a catastrophe a week from the nearest town. The success of a crusade, the profit of a trading mission, or the fulfillment of a religious vow often hinged on this simple, grueling daily diligence. How did they manage to maintain this standard of care when the very world around them was in constant, dangerous motion? The true cost of a warhorse was measured in more than just the initial purchase. Its upkeep was a continuous drain on a knight's purse, a relentless financial engine that had to be fed. The single greatest expense was its diet. A destrier in heavy training could consume staggering amounts of grain, up to 20 pounds of oats and barley every single day. To put that in perspective, that volume of grain could have fed a peasant family for weeks. Then came the hay, the constant replacement of straw bedding, and the specialized supplements for convalescing animals. This was not a matter of buying a few sacks at a time. A knight or a lord had to manage entire agricultural estates dedicated to producing this fodder, or be forced to buy it at market prices that could ruin him in a lean year. The specialized labor was another deep and constant cost. A skilled farrier did not work for pennies. Shoeing a single horse with the custom forging and precise fitting was a significant expense and had to be repeated every 6 to 8 weeks as the hooves grew. A warhorse with its complex gear might require new shoes even more frequently. Then there was the stable staff itself. A head groom, experienced in both horsemanship and the management of men, commanded a high wage. Under him were a team of undergrooms, each responsible for the daily care of a handful of animals. Their salaries, food, and lodging were all part of the ledger. And when illness struck, the services of a reputable horse leech came with a premium price, especially if he used rare or imported ingredients in his remedies. Every element, from the quality of the leather in the bridle to the type of oil used to condition it, was a line item in a budget dedicated entirely to keeping one animal in a state of constant readiness. This financial chasm separated the knight's world from the peasant's as clearly as any castle wall. A peasant's plow horse, his roundsey, was an investment of a different kind. It was a vital tool, but its care was stripped down to the barest essentials. Its diet was whatever it could scavenge from common pasture, along with the lowest quality hay, often mixed with straw during the winter. It would only see a handful of grain during the most demanding periods of the plowing season. The services of a farrier were a rare luxury. A village blacksmith might hammer out a simple, flat piece of iron as a shoe, a crude but functional solution compared to the custom-forged masterpieces for a destrier. More often, the plow horse went unshod, its hooves wearing down naturally, which left it vulnerable to stone bruises and lameness. There was no staff of grooms. The care of the animal fell to the farmer and his family, who would rub it down after a long day in the fields with whatever rag was handy, if they had the energy left to do it at all. Veterinary care was almost non-existent. If the horse fell ill, the farmer might try a folk remedy passed down through generations, or more likely, he would simply hope the animal recovered on its own. Its loss, however, would be catastrophic, potentially plunging his entire family into starvation. This stark contrast in care was a perfect mirror of medieval society itself. The destrier, gleaming and powerful, was a symbol of aristocratic privilege. Its flawless condition a public display of wealth so vast that its owner could afford to pour a fortune into a single animal. The peasant's horse, often thin and rough-coated, was a symbol of subsistence, its care a desperate calculation of minimum input for maximum survival. The health of a horse was never just about the animal. It was a walking, breathing statement of your place in the world. A knight's protection extended beyond his own plate armor to the very animal beneath him. This second skin for the warhorse was known as barding, a system of armor that transformed a vulnerable animal into a shielded engine of war. The simplest form was the cloth trapper, a long, flowing cape of thick fabric, often emblazoned with the knight's coat of arms. While it offered little defense against a direct sword blow, it was far from useless. This heavy cloth protected the horse from the elements, kept its muscles warm, and, most importantly, deflected glancing arrows and slowed the penetration of crossbow bolts, buying a precious second for the knight to react. For more serious protection, a mail chanfron was fitted over the horse's head. This hood of interlocking iron rings shielded the animal's most vulnerable areas, its face, eyes, and neck, from slashing attacks. The most advanced and formidable barding was plate armor. Crafted from shaped steel plates, it could include a pectoral to protect the chest, flanchards for the flanks, and cruppers for the hindquarters. A fully armored destrier was a breathtaking and terrifying sight, a living fortress. Yet this metal shell created its own set of dangerous problems. A single misplaced strap or a poorly fitted plate could rub the horse's hide raw in minutes under the strain of a charge, creating a painful wound that would quickly become infected. The armor had to be meticulously shaped to allow for the full range of the horse's powerful shoulder movement and the deep, lunging breaths it needed for stamina. Maintaining this complex gear was a nightly ritual as vital as caring for the horse itself. The primary enemy was rust. After a day's training or a march in the rain, every piece of plate and mail had to be thoroughly dried and then scoured with sand and vinegar to remove any moisture and stop the creeping orange corrosion. Once clean, the metal was rubbed down with a thin layer of lard or beeswax. This created a protective barrier against the air, keeping the armor serviceable and preventing it from becoming brittle. A groom's hands would trace every edge and strap, feeling for cracks in a plate or stretched links in the mail. A cracked plate was a crisis. It could not simply be hammered back into shape, as the metal would be weakened and likely shatter on the next impact. It had to be taken to the armorer's forge, heated, and skillfully reforged. A single broken strap was replaced immediately, as a failure during a charge could send a section of armor swinging loose, terrifying the horse and leaving a fatal gap in its defenses. This constant, painstaking upkeep was the price of a knight's mobility. A rusty, ill-fitting suit of barding was worse than no armor at all. A heavy, chafing prison that would slow and injure the very creature it was meant to protect. The true master of the stable was not the knight who rode the horse, but the groom who kept it ready. These men were the unsung engineers of medieval mobility, their lives a relentless cycle of pre-dawn chores and late-night vigilance. A head groom, sometimes holding the title of marshal, was a man of significant authority and trust. He was the stable master, a professional who commanded a team of under-grooms and stable boys, and his word on any matter of equine health was law. His specialized knowledge was a form of power. He could diagnose a subtle lameness from the way a horse placed its hoof, predict the weather from the behavior of the herd, and mix a poultice from memory. He knew the temperament of every animal in his care, which destrier needed a calming word before being saddled, and which palfrey was a glutton that would overeat if given the chance. This deep, practical wisdom made him more valuable to a campaigning lord than a dozen fresh squires. His loss could cripple a knight's effectiveness as surely as the loss of the horse itself. The work began before first light. The first duty was mucking out, the removal of soiled straw and waste from each stall. This was not merely about cleanliness, it was a critical defense against disease and hoof rot. Next came the watering, drawing fresh, clean water from the well and scrubbing the stone troughs to prevent the growth of slime. Only then would the feeding begin, with the groom carefully measuring out each horse's specific grain ration, his hands judging the weight of the oats as surely as any scale. The afternoon was reserved for the detailed grooming ritual, that essential combination of massage and medical inspection. And throughout the day, there was tack to be cleaned, repaired, and oiled, minor wounds to be dressed, and the constant watchful eye kept for any sign of distress or illness. A stable boy, at the very bottom of this hierarchy, might start his day by sweeping the aisles and end it by endlessly twisting hay into tight bundles called wisps, which were used like giant brushes to polish the horses' coats. It was a life of humble, back-breaking labor, yet it required a rare combination of brute strength and gentle patience. A single moment of carelessness, a buckle left undone or a hidden wound missed, could lead to disaster. How many battles were won not by the sword's swing, but by the groom's diligence the morning before? A horse's eyes were the first window to its soul and its health. A groom's day began with a quiet moment of observation, standing at the stall door and simply watching. He looked for the bright, clear, and alert expression of a healthy animal. Dull, sunken eyes or a thick, cloudy discharge could signal a fever or a deep-seated infection. The horse's coat was his next clue. That famous glossy sheen was more than just a product of brushing. It was a sign of internal vitality. A coat that grew rough and staring, standing on end instead of lying flat, was a glaring red flag for sickness, malnutrition, or a heavy parasite load. The animal's stance told its own story. A horse that stood resting a hind leg was likely comfortable, but one that shifted its weight constantly, pointed a front foot forward, or repeatedly looked back at its own flank was broadcasting pain, often from the agonizing grip of colic. The most telling evidence, however, was often found on the stable floor. A groom did not simply shovel manure, he rated. The droppings of a healthy horse were moist, formed, and fell apart easily. Hard, dry balls meant the animal was dehydrated or constipated. Loose, watery manure indicated a digestive upset or a more serious flux. The groom's senses were his diagnostic tools, the smell, the color, the texture, all painting a picture of the inner workings of a vast and delicate digestive system. When these signs pointed to a specific illness, the options for treatment were often heartbreakingly limited. Colic, a twisting or blockage of the gut, was a constant and dreaded specter. The horse would grow restless, sweat profusely, and repeatedly attempt to lie down and roll. The horse leech might attempt to ease the spasm with a drench of herbal tea, or try to move the blockage with a powerful purgative, but these interventions could easily worsen the situation. For a severe intestinal twist, there was simply no cure. Strangles was another terror, a highly contagious disease that swept through stables like wildfire. Named for the swollen lymph nodes that could strangle a horse's airway, it began with a high fever and a thick, yellow nasal discharge. Isolation was the only real defense. The leech would lance the abscesses when they formed in the jaw, draining the pus in the hope that the animal's own constitution was strong enough to fight off the infection. Many recovered, but many others succumbed to the fever or secondary complications. Lameness was a more localized, but equally devastating diagnosis. The groom's first task was to find the source of the pain. He would run his hands down each leg, feeling for heat, swelling, or a telltale pulse in the digital artery below the knee, a sign of inflammation deep within the hoof. He would watch the horse move, his trained eye detecting the subtle head nod that occurred when the sore foot hit the ground. The cause could be anything from a simple stone bruise to a pulled tendon, a cracked hoof, or the mysterious and debilitating founder, an internal inflammation of the hoof structure. For a deep abscess, the farrier or leech might have to pierce the sole of the hoof with a sharp awl to release the trapped pus, an excruciating but necessary relief. For a strained tendon, weeks of rest and cooling poultices were the only prescription. Yet so much of this was guesswork. They could treat the symptoms they could see and feel, but the hidden workings of the body remained a profound mystery. How did they cope when the most valuable animal in the stable faced an illness that defied all their accumulated wisdom and herbal lore? The stables of medieval Europe were not isolated islands of knowledge. A river of sophisticated equine wisdom flowed directly from the Islamic world, transforming European horsemanship in ways that are still felt today. This exchange began most profoundly in Al-Andalus, the Muslim-ruled territory in Spain, where for centuries Arab and European cultures coexisted and cross-pollinated. Here, European knights and breeders encountered an equestrian tradition of breathtaking depth and refinement, one that prized not just brute strength, but also intelligence, grace, and a deep psychological understanding of the horse. They saw a different kind of warhorse, the swift and enduring Arabian, bred for stamina in the desert, and revered almost as a member of the family. This was a stark contrast to the massive, powerful destriers of the north, and it forced a reevaluation of what truly made a great horse. The Crusades, for all their violence, became another unexpected channel for this knowledge. Frankish knights who went east to fight found themselves facing adversaries whose skill in the saddle and whose horses' conditioning were often superior. In the markets of Outremer and through prisoner exchanges, they gained access to these superior animals and the sophisticated care they received. A knight might return home with not just a captured Arabian stallion, but with the revolutionary idea that a horse's spirit was as important as its strength. The most lasting impact, however, came not from the horses themselves, but from the books that documented their care. At the heart of this intellectual transfer were texts like the works of the 9th century writer Ibn Akhi-Hizm. His manuals were encyclopedic, covering everything from the ideal traits of a breeding stallion to the treatment of a lame hoof. He wrote with a scientific precision that was largely absent in European sources, detailing how to diagnose illness by a horse's pulse and demeanor, and prescribing complex herbal remedies. When these Arabic texts were translated into Latin and Castilian in the great translation schools of Toledo and other Iberian cities, they became a revelation for European horse masters. Suddenly, they had access to a structured, systematic body of knowledge that explained the why behind their practices. The Arabic influence reshaped European breeding programs. The introduction of sleek, desert-bred Arabian and Barb stallions into heavy European stock is what began to create the athletic, versatile horses we know today, blending northern power with southern endurance. Their training methods, which emphasized patience and communication over force, slowly seeped into European practice, creating more responsive and reliable mounts. The legacy of this exchange is a testament to the fact that knowledge knows no borders, and that the care of a single animal can be a bridge between entire civilizations. Every tool in the stable had a purpose, a specific problem it was designed to solve in the endless battle to keep a horse healthy. Beyond the familiar brushes and forge, there existed a whole arsenal of specialized instruments, each one a testament to the practical, and sometimes frightening, ingenuity of medieval care. Take the humble tooth rasp, for instance. A horse's teeth grow continuously, and if they wear unevenly, they can develop sharp points and hooks that slice into its cheeks and tongue, causing pain that makes eating difficult. The rasp was a long, coarse file attached to a handle. The groom would carefully wedge a block of wood in the horse's mouth to keep it open, then use this tool to gently file down the sharp edges, a delicate dental procedure performed with simple iron. For more invasive tasks, restraint was essential, and that is where the twitch came in. This was a dreaded but necessary device, often a loop of rope on a wooden handle. The loop was twisted tightly around the horse's upper lip. This applied a steady, distracting pressure that triggered a release of endorphins, calming the animal just enough for a farrier to work on a difficult hoof or for a leech to make a quick incision. It was a crude form of anesthesia, using the body's own chemistry to prevent a panicked animal from injuring itself or its handlers. When an incision was needed, the horse leech reached for his fleam. This was not a simple knife. It was a folding, multi-bladed instrument, much like a pocket knife, with each blade a different size and shape. The most common was a sharp, leaf-shaped blade used for bloodletting, designed to make a clean, precise cut into the jugular vein. Other, narrower blades might be used for lancing an abscess or scraping away dead flesh from a wound. For administering liquid medicines, they used a device that functioned like a syringe, though it looked nothing like a modern one. It was often a hollow animal horn with a narrow tip. The liquid remedy would be poured into the wide end, and the groom would blow forcefully into the same opening, forcing the medicine down the horse's throat. It was a messy, imprecise method, but it was the only way to ensure a stubborn or sick animal swallowed a critical dose. Each of these tools, from the rasp that ensured a pain-free meal to the fleam that risked a life to save it, represented a choice. They were the physical extensions of a groom's hands and a leech's will, the simple, unadorned technology that stood between a working animal and a world full of hidden dangers. A horse's health was guarded by more than just medicine and stable walls. It was protected by an invisible world of charms and whispered rituals, a deep layer of superstition that offered comfort against the unpredictable forces of illness and misfortune. One of the most pervasive fears was the evil eye, the belief that a single envious glance could curse a prized animal, causing it to sicken or go lame. To ward off this invisible threat, owners turned to apotropaic charms. A common practice was to hang a hold stone, often found in streams or fields, from a stable beam or braided into the horse's mane. This natural aperture was thought to trap and neutralize the malevolent gaze before it could reach the animal. Other amulets included bundles of specific herbs like St. John's wort, or even a worn-out horseshoe nailed above the stall door with its ends pointing upward, symbolically holding in the good luck. The horse's own body was not left undefended. A single white sock on an otherwise dark leg was sometimes seen as a natural safeguard, a mark of divine favor that confused evil spirits. This reliance on symbols reveals a mindset where every aspect of the environment, even the color of an animal's coat, held a hidden meaning. The folklore surrounding horse colors was a complex language of omens. A pure white horse was often viewed with a mixture of awe and suspicion. In some traditions, it was a symbol of purity and good fortune, the preferred mount for kings and heroes. In others, it was an omen of death, a phantom steed glimpsed before a tragedy. A piebald horse, with its stark black and white patches, was frequently associated with clowns and tricksters, but also with magical protection, its broken pattern thought to bewilder evil forces. A solid black horse could symbolize mystery and the underworld, yet it was also prized for its perceived toughness and resilience. Beyond mere appearance, specific rituals were performed to ensure a horse's vitality, particularly its fertility. To encourage a valuable mare to conceive a strong foal, a breeder might lead her around a standing stone or an ancient oak tree, tracing a sunwise circle to harness the earth's generative power. Before a difficult journey, an owner might blow gently into the horse's nostrils, a gesture believed to share his own breath and spirit with the animal, forging a protective bond for the road ahead. These acts were not empty gestures. In a world where a sudden plague could wipe out an entire stable, and where the reasons for a mare's failure to conceive were a complete mystery, these rituals provided a sense of agency. They were a way to fight back against the chaos of fate with the only weapons they had: faith and tradition. The careful brush of a groom's hand and the hanging of a hold stone were two sides of the same coin, both dedicated to the same sacred goal: preserving the life of the creature that made their world possible. A devastating silence fell over the stables of Europe. The Black Death did not distinguish between man and beast, and its arrival shattered the intricate world of equine care in ways no one could have foreseen. The plague scythe cut down masters and apprentices alike, creating a catastrophic vacuum of knowledge. An entire generation of skilled farriers, who knew the precise angle to trim a hoof for a perfect fit, simply vanished. Experienced grooms, the men who could diagnose colic with a single glance at a horse's stance, were gone. The horse leeches, with their handwritten books of herbal remedies and rituals, took their secret wisdom to the grave. This was not just a loss of life, it was a loss of memory, a broken chain of practical wisdom that had been passed from one pair of calloused hands to another for centuries. The great stud farms, so carefully built up over generations, were decimated. Prized warhorses, palfreys, and sturdy roundseys died in their thousands, not from the plague itself, but from the simple, brutal neglect that followed. With no one left to feed, water, and groom them, these magnificent animals succumbed to starvation and disease, their bodies piling up in pastures that had once been meticulously rotated. The economic foundation of the medieval world crumbled. A knight's destrier, once worth a king's ransom, was now practically worthless if there was no one left who knew how to keep it shod or treat its ailments. The surviving nobility found their wealth, once measured in land and livestock, evaporating overnight. The sheer cost of maintaining a warhorse became an impossible burden for many. This financial collapse forced a fundamental shift in the very nature of warfare and daily life. The age of the heavily armored knight, dependent on a massively expensive and logistically complex warhorse, began its slow decline. In its place, a new pragmatism took root. The surviving horses had to be more versatile, more resilient, and cheaper to maintain. The meticulous, labor-intensive care of the past was no longer sustainable. Out of the ashes of this great dying, a new, harder, and more practical relationship with the horse would have to be forged, one born not from tradition, but from sheer necessity. The clang of the farrier's hammer and the scent of the herbal poultice fade into history, yet their legacy is a profound truth. Medieval horse care was never a single discipline, but a living tapestry woven from three distinct threads. The first was hard-won practical skill, the groom's knowing hands and the stable master's sharp eye. The second was the slow emergence of a structured science, seen in the breeding records and the translated Arabic texts that sought to explain the why behind the how. And the third, the deepest and most resilient thread, was the power of tradition and superstition, the charms hung in stables and the rituals performed under a full moon. This intricate blend was about so much more than maintaining an animal's health. It was the preservation of an entire way of life. A knight's social status, his very identity, was inseparable from the horse he rode. For a king, a well-bred and perfectly conditioned destrier was a direct instrument of military power, an advantage as critical as any siege engine. And for the common farmer, the survival of his family through the winter depended entirely on the strength of his humble roundseat. The bond between human and horse shaped the borders of kingdoms, the routes of trade, and the very rhythm of daily existence for centuries. It makes you wonder, with all our modern veterinary knowledge, what subtle equine wisdom has been lost to time. What secrets of communication or healing did those grooms and leeches take with them that we have yet to rediscover? Share your thoughts on what forgotten knowledge we might reclaim, and journey with us again soon for more explorations into the hidden corners of our past.